wanted to study is a little long, but actually something that I have been thinking about for quite a while. It's textually and theologically a very difficult section. It's chapters 33 and the beginning of 34 of Exodus. And I decided to do this because it follows what we were doing in our last session, which is chapter 32 of Exodus. Chapter 32 is the sin involving the golden calf.
So we have 33, 1 second.
We have 32 through 34. That's what I asked Rolly to send out.
Okay.
Okay. The last time we were together, we did chapter 32, which is the sin of the golden calf, where after the revelation at Sinai, the Israelites build a calf and seem to worship it. They say, "This is the God that took us out of Egypt." And God tells Moses that they are worshiping the calf. Moses comes down, and Moses prays for forgiveness. All of this is in chapter 32. God says, "I won't destroy them." And then Moses comes down to the mountain, shatters the tablets, and then reestablishes order in the camp by recruiting the tribe of Levi and then killing a certain number of people in the camp. So we find ourselves at the beginning of chapter 33, where Moshe goes back up to the mountain and is now asking God for a different kind of forgiveness. So I want to read through chapter 33 and the beginning of chapter 34, and then discuss together what exactly are the terms of the discussion here. What is Moshe asking for? What is God giving him? What are the problems that they're dealing with, and what conclusions do they come to? Okay.
Okay, Rami, you start.
Chapter 33, verse 1.
وقال الرب لموسى اذهب اصعد من هنا أنت والشعب الذي أصعدته من أرض مصر إلى الأرض التي حلفت لإبراهيم وإسحاق ويعقوب قائلا لنسلك أعطيها.
Annika?
Und stellte die Mägde mit ihren Kindern vorne an und Lea mit ihren Kindern dahinter und Rachel und Josef zuletzt.
Daniel?
Unto a land flowing with milk and honey, for I will not go up in the midst of thee, for thou art a stiff-necked people, lest I consume thee in the way.
Sonja?
Da das Volk diese böse Rede hörte, trug sie Leid, und niemand trug seinen Schmuck an sich.
Who is next? יונתן?
ואומר אדוני אל משה, אמור לבני ישראל, אתם עם קשה עורף, רגע אחד אעלה בקרבך וככיליתיך, ואתה הורד אליך מעליך, וידעה מה אעשה לך.
רולי, אתה מסוגל? No. ברברה?
Also taten die Kinder Israel ihren Schmuck von sich vor dem Berge Horeb.
One second. אוקיי. ומשה ייקח את האוהל, ונטל לו מחוץ למחנה, הרחק מן המחנה, וקרא לו אוהל מועד, והיה כל מבקש השם יצא אל אוהל מועד אשר מחוץ למחנה. סוניה?
Und wenn Mose ausging zur Hütte, so stand alles Volk auf und trat ein jeglicher in seine Hütte-Tür und sahen ihm nach, bis er in die Hütte kam.
יונתן?
האוהלה ירד עמוד הענן ועמד פתח האוהל ודיבר עם משה.
ברברה, 10. Vers 10.
Und alles Volk sah die Wolkensäule in der Hüttetür stehen und standen auf und neigten sich ein jeglicher in seiner Hüttetür.
رامي.
ويكلم الرب موسى وجها لوجه كما يكلم الرجل صاحبه. وإذ رجع موسى إلى المحلة كان خادمه يشوع بن نون الغلام لا يبرح من داخل الخيمة.
رامي.
وقال موسى للرب انظر أنت قائل لي اسعد هذا الشعب وأنت لم تعرفني من ترسل معي وأنت قد قلت عرفتك باسمك ووجدت أيضا نعمة في عيني.
What's happening here? Abraham?
Verse 13, now therefore I pray thee, if I have found grace in thy sight, show me now thy way, that I may know thee, that I may find grace in thy sight, and consider that this nation is thy people.
Axel, you appeared. Verse 14. Axel, can you hear us? No. So in the meantime, Gerald, can you welcome on board? Can you read verse 14?
Chapter 34.
And he said, my presence shall go with thee, and I will give thee rest.
Chezi?
ויאמר אליו, אם אין פניך הולכים, אל תעלנו מזה.
יונתן? אתה קראת, אז דניאל.
For wherein shall it be known here that I and thy people have found grace in thy sight? Is it not thou that goest with us? So shall we be separated, I and thy people, from all the people that are on the face of the earth.
Okay. Axel?
Shalom.
Shalom. Verse 17. You have the screen?
Now I have the screen. Der Herr sprach zu Mose, was du jetzt geredet hast, will ich auch tun. Denn du hast Gnade vor meinen Augen gefunden und ich kenne dich mit Namen.
Okay, Daniel. עוד פעם.
And he said, I beseech thee, show me thy glory.
Okay. The order changes the whole time. I'm sorry, don't keep the strict order. Barbara, 19.
Und er sprach, ich will vor deinem Angesicht alle meine Güter vorübergehen lassen und will ausrufen des Herrn Namen vor dir. Wem ich aber gnädig bin, dem bin ich gnädig. Und wes ich mich erbarme, des erbarme ich mich.
אבירם, שלום עליכם, פסוק כ'.
שלום. ויאמר לא תוכל לראות את פניי, כי לא יראני האדם וחי.
אוקיי. ויאמר אדוני, הנה מקום איתי וניצבת על הצור. אניקה, 22.
Wenn denn nun meine Herrlichkeit vorübergeht, will ich dich in der Felskluft lassen stehen und meine Hand ob dir halten, bis ich vorübergehe.
Abraham, 23.
And I will take away my hand, and thou shalt see my back parts, but my face shall not be seen.
אוקיי, יונתן.
ויאמר אדוני אל משה, תפסול לך 2 לוחות אבנים כראשונים, וכתבתי על הלוחות את הדברים אשר היו הראשונים אשר שיברת.
חזי.
ויהיה נכון לבוקר, ועלית בבוקר אל הר סיני, וניצבת לי שם על ראש ההר.
ג'רלד.
And no man shall come up with thee, neither let any man be seen throughout all the mount, neither let the flocks nor herds feed therefore before that mount.
Daniel.
And he hewed 2 tablets of stone like the first. And Moses rose up in the morning and went up to Mount Sinai as the Lord had commanded him. And he took in his hand the 2 tablets of stone.
Good. Sonia was with us, no? Sonia, you're here?
Yes, I am.
I don't see you. Okay, please.
Da kam der Herr hernieder in einer Wolke und trat daselbst ihm und rief aus des Herrn Namen.
Barbara.
Und der Herr ging vor seinem Angesicht vorüber und rief, Herr, Herr, Gott barmherzig und gnädig und geduldig und von großer Gnade und Treue.
Maybe you continue to 7. By us, in our tradition, they're really one thing.
Der da bewahrt Gnade in 1000 Gliedern und vergibt Missetat, Übertretung und Sünde, und vor welchem niemand unschuldig ist, der die Missetat der Väter heimsucht auf Kinder und Kindeskinder bis ins 3. und 4. Glied.
Rami? Rami? What happened? Rami, open your microphone.
فأسرع موسى وخر إلى الأرض وسجد وقال إن وجدت نعمة في عينيك أيها السيد فليسر السيد في وسطنا فإنه شعب صلب الرقبة واغفر إثمنا وخطياتنا واتخذنا ملكا.
Now, verse 10. Daniel.
And he said, Behold, I make a covenant. Before all thy people I will do marvels, such have not been done in all the earth, nor in any nation. And all the people among which thou art shall see the work of the Lord, for it is a terrible thing that I will do with thee.
Chezi.
I think we can stop. We can stop here.
Right. Now starts something completely different, right?
Yeah. This is a more legal section. Okay. So the basic question that I kind of wanted to put to the fore is, what is going on here? What are the terms of the discussion? What is there? There's a back and forth here between God and Moshe. God offers something, Moshe asks for something else, God offers, Moshe says that's not enough.
Could you point out the
Yes. Okay.
The
so already in verse 1, verses 1 through 3, God says something. Okay, he says something like, go up to the land and I will send an angel before you to the land of milk and honey. Verse 4, already we have the people responding negatively. When the people heard these evil tidings, somehow this is not a good message. And that's reinforced in verses 5 and 6. Then we have in verses 7 through 10, I think, if you'll scroll down. Verses
11.
10 through 11, we have a kind of segue or kind of tangent where it talks about a new order of the relationship between God and Israel, where everything is mediated through Moshe. Moshe pitches the tent outside the camp. Anybody who wants to approach to approach God has to come to the outside of the camp through Moshe, and Moshe's kind of the intercessor. And then in verse 12, we have chapter 34, verse 12. We have a new conversation between Moshe and God, where he says, "You said bring up this people. You didn't say who you're going to send with me." And then he goes into this whole request of it's in verse
18.
No, before that. Now I pray thee, I found grace in your sight. Show me now your way. Show me your ways. God responds in verse 14. Moshe in verse 15 indicates that whatever God was saying is not enough, and he repeats in verse 18, "Show me your ways." And finally, in verse 19, God acquiesces and says, we're almost acquiesces. He says, you can't see me completely, but you can see the back of me. And then finally, in chapter 34, we have Moshe being hidden in a cleft in the rock, and God appears before him, and then he declares, it's not clear who is declaring this, in verses 6 and 7, something about the attributes of God. And then finally, in verses 8 through 10, the matter seems to be resolved. God says, I will do wonders and great things. And that seems to be the end of the discussion. Whatever Moshe has asked for, God seems to have granted. So
I just want to point two things. You skipped 34 verse 1 to 4 that regard no tables, which is totally outside of the story. It's a side thing. And also that in chapter 34, verse 9, Moshe admits to God's accusation that the nation
That
is
they are stiff-necked people.
stiff-necked. They're yes, but he takes it as a leverage towards forgiveness, not towards abandoning the nation, but towards forgiveness.
Right. Okay, so really my question is, starting from the beginning of chapter 33, what's wrong? What is God, in what way is the relationship still not completely healed? What's going on when Moshe pitches the tent outside the camp? When he re-engages in conversation with God, what are the issues that he's asking for? And what's the relationship between all of that discussion and the way that God shows himself or shows his ways to Moshe in chapter 34? Thoughts, comments, other questions that maybe I've missed? Obviously, this is a very rich section, both textually and theologically. So I think there's a lot to talk about, and many thoughts that we could, many directions we could take this in.
So of course, so Axel, you want to take to give people the permission to talk?
The problem is that I can't see each of them. So
Yes, you can. You have a strip. You see the strip of faces?
Yes, but I see only 5 faces.
Right. You see,
stop the share screen.
there is an arrow.
No.
There is
Yes.
an arrow, so you can see everyone.
Yes, but okay, I'll try.
And also, please, people, raise your hand. Raise your hand in the function. You have in a function of hand raising, or simply send the chat to Axel that you want to say something.
Where's the hand raising?
The hand, it's on top. You have, when you take your mouse to the top of the screen, a list of functions come down.
Options. No.
Okay, or better, send a chat. You have chat there.
On the bottom of the screen, there's a chat icon.
Okay.
By you, it's in the bottom. Okay. Look for a chat icon, and you simply, okay.
Anyone have thoughts? I can start, but I would really like to hear what people have any initial impressions, anything, any 1 or 2 verses that strike you as maybe particularly representative or indicative of what's going on here. There's also a lot of terminology. There's discussion of God's grace. There's discussion of whether he goes with Israel or doesn't go with Israel.
I'll rephrase your question. These chapters from 33 and the beginning of 34 seem to be laden with mysticism. The presence of God, what does it mean? But maybe I think the challenge is to try to read the text as simply as possible. And I think that the language in verse 3, chapter 33, verse 3 that you see in the screen is very strange. Verse 1 and 2 is okay. They go to the land of that God swore to give to Abraham, Isaac, and Yaakov, and he will chase the Canaanite from Israel, and this is okay. And the land flows with milk and honey. Until now, it's very nice. But here at the end of verse 3, there is something which is a jarring note. I will not go up in your midst. So you have all of a sudden something that does not fit into the music of 1 or 2. Or maybe we miss, in the light of verse 3, we have to reread verses 1 and 2 and see they are not so wonderful as they sound.
So what do verses 1 and 2 mean if in verse 3 already God is saying that he won't go up.
Yes, it sent us back, you know. The verse 3 sends us back to verse 1 and 2. It says, read it again and try to understand again. We cannot read the text verse by verse. We have to go back and see really what is the meaning here. Okay, Rami.
In the light of the second part of verse 3, I have just, when I read it again, I feel that God here proclaims that he is honest to fulfill his promises. Whatever he does feel angry from the Israelites of what they had done in chapter 32 concerning making this cult. However, I am the God, the mighty God who drove you from Egypt, and I will fulfill my promise. However, I will not be among you because I am like sad or I am angry with you. So for me, it's like God proclaims himself that he is always keeps his promises and words.
Before I give it back to Axel, so I just want to point that this was what Moshe said. If you see in chapter 32, verse 13, this is he said, you swore to Avraham, Yitzchak, and Israel, your slaves, and you are obligated, you are obliged. So Rami suggests, okay, God says, I'm obliged, I signed the contract, I'll fulfill my part, right? But I'm not doing it happily. This is what you mean.
Yeah.
Okay, Axel, you lead, you take over.
Okay, so I just remember that that we have later on in chapter 34. There is another reading because said that in contradiction to verse 3 that the people will come up to God 3 times a year in this commandments later on, and so obviously he changed his mind again.
In what way? I didn't get it.
Just so everybody has the reference, it's chapter 34, verse
3. We have it on the screen.
Oh, okay.
No.
No, he's talking about later in the chapter. He's saying, when you come to the land of Israel, you shall go up to God 3 times a year.
3 times a year, and
okay, this is verse 23. Chapter 34, verse 23.
This implies that God is there, although he has said in verse 3 in chapter 33 that he won't be there. But here in chapter 34, he changed his mind.
Where do you see again? You're talking about verse 23?
Exactly, yes. 34:23.
So what do you see there? Where do you see the change of mind?
That you have a chance to appear before God. In addition to chapter 33, where it said, you won't
in contradiction to 33:3?
I don't want to I will not go up in the midst of thee. So he does not join the people.
I see. So in verse 3, just to understand what you said, in verse 3 he said, I will not be among you. And in 34:23, he said, when you come to the land of Canaan, you should appear 3 times a year before God, because God wants you with him.
Exactly.
And this is what you're pointing out.
Yeah.
And let me just point out that that's what Moshe asks for in chapter 34, verse 9.
Yeah.
In chapter 34, verse 9, he says, if I have found grace in thy sight, O Lord, let me, Lord, I pray thee, go among us. So it seems that by the time God gets to verse 23, that he has agreed that he will go with them, even though he said he wouldn't. In other words, God has changed his mind from
Yes,
the
but
beginning of chapter 33 to
not
chapter
every
34.
time.
But not every time?
Yes, only 3 times in a year. He will not will be with us all the time because it's too dangerous for us.
Maybe, yeah.
I think it's even more than that, because in verse 23, he says in Hebrew, "Yira'eh kol zachucha et pnei ha'adon Hashem." He will see your face, and naturally you will see his face. And earlier in the chapter he says, "No one can see me." Lo yira'ani ha'adam v'chai. So maybe.
In other words, the difference between seeing God's face and appearing before God's face.
Yes, and Moses only got to see his back. And
it is very interesting that the translations omitted it. Maybe they had this problem.
Omitted the words God's face in verse 23.
Yes, they omitted the God's face. In Arabic, you have it, Rami?
In which verse?
23.
Chapter 33, right?
Here, 34, 23. So God's face appears in the text, not in the translation.
So in the Arabic, it says 3 times per year I am going to appear before the Lord.
Yes, not face. They don't talk about the face.
No, nothing mentioned about the face, no.
Very interesting. It's very good that you noticed the Hebrew.
Yeah.
So can we see this as the central motif of these 2 chapters, the question of whether God will go up with Israel or not? And if so, what does that mean? What does it mean for God to go up with Israel or not go up with Israel? In any sense, in a theological sense, in a mystical sense, in a practical sense.
I just want to point out again that in a practical sense, the result will be the same, that the inhabitants of the land will be driven out before Israel.
So what's the issue then? What's the issue if God goes with them or doesn't go with them? And what does that mean, that God goes with them or doesn't go with them?
Okay, this I leave to the people to answer. Okay, try to. I'm sure that you people know to look at verse 4. It was not. I don't like the mystic explanation, because when you look at verse 4, everyone understood that it was a bad, evil tidings. The entire nation understood that it was evil tidings. So I don't think there is something complicated or mystic. It has to be something very simple. You know, everything that is mystic, some people say, you know, I don't care. Some people say, I care more. Some people say, I care less. But here they hear that and they even mourn. And they react very strongly to God's threat or punishment. So I think that the mystic, some obscure mystic explanation is out, is simply doesn't fit the text.
Well, I wonder whether this verse 3 wants to explain why the people looked for another god.
Again?
Because they sensed that God wasn't going to be with them?
Yeah.
No, again, could you repeat what you said? I didn't catch it.
Okay, in verse 3, God announces that he won't join the people, right?
Okay.
He won't join the people. And afterwards, the people made golden calf because the people looked for another god. Looked for maybe translation because they were mourning.
But all that happened before. All that happened in chapter 32, meaning that.
Pardon me. Exactly.
Yes, this was after God forgave the sign. It's after the story. So the option of getting another God is out already.
Yeah, okay. Pardon me. Sonia raised her hand.
Yes. I think like verse 3 and the repetition in verse 5 suggests that the relationship is not yet repaired, where God is still with them, but he can't be in the midst of the people, so he moves outside, as it's mentioned in verse 7, that he takes the tabernacle and puts it outside, and Moshe can go outside and talk to him, and the people stay in another place. So maybe the relationship has to heal, and it's still broken, and you know what I mean?
Yes, of course. Verse 4 is mourning, and verse 5 is a complete change of music from verses 1 and 2. Here it is talking about terrible punishment. I agree with you that verse 5 is really bad.
So let me even sharpen Sonia's point even more. That not only has the relationship not healed, but you get the sense in the beginning of chapter 33 that God is really concerned that if he goes with them, that he'll destroy them. He says it twice. He says it in verse 3 and again in verse 5. What changes then by the time we get to chapter 34? Why all of a sudden is he not concerned that he will kind of instinctively or maybe necessarily destroy them if he goes with them? What is the nature of that healing? If something heals between chapter 33 and chapter 34, what has healed, and why does God think that's not a concern anymore, that he will kind of instinctively destroy them, as he almost did in chapter 32?
Okay, I'll ask you something else, Daniel. You're a semiotic expert. What does stiff neck mean? They don't say that they're bad. It doesn't say that they are bad or evil. They say they are stiff-necked. And Moshe uses the same thing, that they are stiff-necked. So what does it mean?
Right, that's what doesn't change, meaning God says they're stiff-necked at the beginning of chapter 33, and then by the time we get to chapter 34, that's the only thing that hasn't changed. They're still stiff-necked.
So what does it mean? I think that's the key, because the reason that God is not going to be in his presence, is not going to be among the people, is because they are stiff-necked.
Stiff-necked meaning they can't change, they can't respond differently to different circumstances. In what way are they stiff-necked?
I see. Tell me, people, any one of you ever had a stiff neck? Seriously. You know what happens when you're stiff-necked. I had it as a result of a whiplash after a car accident.
Rami raises his hand and wants to say something.
Yes.
Yeah, about stiff-necked, I think like stubborn, when someone really insists not to change his way or her way doing things. That's
so why is it stiff-neck?
I think when your neck is like, in Arabic, it's solid, like a steel or like a solid neck, which means you cannot even look
exactly.
right,
you cannot turn your head to the sides. Exactly. You can look only forwards and you cannot move your head. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. This is what happens. So Daniel, so what do you think it means?
I don't know. It seems to me that maybe there's some relationship between the fact that God says, I'm going to destroy you, just like the people are stiff-necked, so too, if the people can't change, and the people are always going to be this way, then God also kind of reacts instinctively, almost as though God can't control himself, if we can say that in some way, that the people can't control themselves, and therefore God can't control himself. They're going to do their thing, and God will do his thing, which is to destroy them.
I don't think that stiff neck is ADD or Asperger. I think stiff neck is simply you cannot change your.
Right, that's what I mean. That you can't. You can't. You're saying that's part of what it means to not be able to adapt.
Rami,
For people who have,
raise his hand.
Rami, your hand is raised.
I think I didn't lower my hand. I'm sorry. I just didn't lower my hand. Sorry.
Okay. Rami is the only one that knows how to raise the hand in the group. May I suggest something that maybe it's not anger at all. Maybe the presence of God means that we are enlightened. It's enlightenment. Simply, in the simplest meaning of the presence of God, meaning you understand, you have new horizons, you can create, you become creative. But if you are stiff-necked, it won't help you. So maybe God does not say that, I'm angry with you and I'll finish you, but for a stiff-necked people, the presence of God will be destructive. Because if you take people that live in habits, they have to wake up 8 o'clock in the morning and go to sleep 11 o'clock at night, and they have fixed habits, and only the fixed habits keep them from sinning. They cannot, this is their only way, because they don't have the flexibility, and they don't understand, they don't create. So maybe God says that if I'll be present with you, I will simply finish you. You'll be finished. You'll do a golden calf again.
Then what?
Yeah.
Okay, I finished.
Jonathan?
It's interesting because if you look at chapter 34, verse 9, you will see
it's a pasuk.
Tit.
Okay.
You will see that the stiff neck, the am ksheoref is used in the exactly opposite way. You will, how is it translated in English?
Go among us, let my Lord, I pray thee, go among us, for it is a stiff-necked people.
Yes.
Those of us who are stiff-necked, because if you will go fast, you can pardon us. You can not like the malach, the angel that can't. He's not flexible. He's much more strict. The Lord.
This is not what it says here. You're referring to chapter 25. Here what it says, that if God will go amongst you, they'll be finished. So an angel has to go among you. You're talking about something that says much earlier that be careful. I'm sending an angel with you, and be careful from him. But this is not here.
I agree, but this is hard to see 33 with 34 because it's the same stiffness.
Right. The reason that God will not go among Israel is because they are stiff-necked. I agree. And twice in verse 3 and verse 5, and then in chapter 34, it's a reason for forgiveness.
Yes.
So
because
Chazi, did you want to say something?
Yes, I want to say that I think when I look in all the Bible about the two words kshe oref, there is only eight times, 6 of them in the relationship between Am Israel and God, and it looks like it's they are not. Who is kshe oref is not listening. Because they're not listening, you have no choice. You have to forgive them.
Where do you see that kshe oref is not listening?
Also, Mishlei 29:1.
Proverbs. Yes. What?
איש תוכחות בקשה עורף, פתע יישבר ואין מרפא.
Yeah, maybe he's stiff-necked because he cannot change his outlook. Not that he doesn't listen.
It's not. I think that it's not there as obstinate, action. They're not listening because
Okay.
if your neck cannot move, so it's okay. You see only gods. You don't see another gods for in the side. It's very good. What's the problem if your neck is cannot move to the sides? I think it's simple that you're not listening. You're not. It's heavy. It's the opposite of רך. אני אגיד את זה בעברית. דבר רך הוא נתון לשינויים. דבר קשה הוא נעול.
בסדר, but maybe you listen. You listen, but you're stiff. You're not willing to change, but you observe the law. You are very stiff with the law, but you don't want to change.
Maybe I would rather say...
Sonia is trying, just 1 second. Sonia is raising her hands for the last half hour.
Picture, pardon me. I only have the list.
Yeah, go ahead. I was wondering if, so verse 3, as we have discussed now in length, suggests that God cannot be in the midst of thee because the people are stiff-necked. But I wonder if that is that's the only reason, because afterwards Moshe talks to God, and it says in verse 11, he speaks to him like someone would speak with a friend. So they are very, they have a very close relationship. And then Moshe asks him to see his face, but also Moshe is not allowed to, because God says no one can see me and live. So maybe there is also for the people another reason, or a bigger reason, why God cannot be in the midst of them. It's not only that they're stiff-necked, but maybe it has also to do with the presence of God.
Meaning the presence is so dangerous that he will destroy them regardless of how they behave.
Yes.
So how do you explain verse 4, that it's such a terrible thing? If it's a fact of, like natural fact, so then verse 4 is difficult. So why do you think it's so bad and you mourn? It's simply a fact. Yes.
And also, again, sorry, I keep coming back to this. What changes from chapter 33 to chapter 34? How are all of a sudden how is God all of a sudden able to be among the Israelites and not destroy them? And maybe I'll ask specifically, what does this have to do, if anything, with the way that God shows himself to Moshe? Is there something in the fact that he shows himself to Moshe, even just his back, that somehow changes the reality of what will happen if God appears among the people?
Mm-hmm.
Gerald, you have been quiet the whole time.
Oh, I've been wanting to join in on these conversations for a while, but I've had time conflicts with other requirements here on campus, so I was happy to be able to this time, and since I haven't really been involved in the others, I just wanted to get some understanding of how it all operates, and I'm enjoying the conversation.
Any thoughts?
Yeah, like some of you have said, stiff-necked. I know from myself, I get sore just sitting here at my desk at times, and it does. And the other thing I'm thinking of is stiff-necked, often in times swollen at times, that it needs some attention given to it. But there's some problem with it in the swollenness. I was thinking a little bit along that lines that maybe they needed some sense of correcting before they could operate fully and learn to turn the neck and view things differently.
Oh, that's so interesting.
So it's not. So you mean it cannot be a permanent condition?
I was just thinking myself. I know. It doesn't need to be permanent, but when it is,
because
it hurts.
It hurts. Oh. So it's not natural.
Elisa raised her hand.
Can you hear me?
Elisa?
Can you hear me?
No, we can't hear you. No.
Okay. Okay. Y'all can hear me?
No, you're not coming through. You're breaking up.
Okay. Okay.
No, doesn't work.
So,
Axel, you are a pastor, an active pastor, right?
I wonder. There was this encounter between.
No.
Pardon?
No, it's sorry, Elisa, it's not working.
No. Okay.
Axel, go ahead.
Between chapter 33 and 34, Daniel, you asked what changed. I mean, there was encounter between Moses and God.
Right.
And if you have a stiff material, the material break easily, and maybe this encounter with in verse chapter 33 in verse 21, there is
here.
Behold, there is a place by me.
Right.
So, maybe it. In the first sense, it's only the space for Moses, but maybe he opens up an opportunity for a space, a third space, no, a space for encounter and some kind of. It's difficult for me to explain. Some space of flexibility or something that the stiff necks won't break like
it's like Gerald said, it's a medicine for the stiff neck. It's a good treatment for a stiff neck.
Yeah.
In other words, the change, I really like what Gerald said, that the change goes from stiff-neckedness being a permanent and unavoidable condition with disastrous consequences and necessary consequences in chapter 33 to being a condition that can be and needs to be healed in chapter 34. And now Axel is suggesting that the possibility of something changing, of something being healed, is revealed when God makes this space for Moses to see him, which he thought was, or we thought, the readers thought was impossible. We thought it was impossible for a person, for a human being to experience God's presence, and then God makes it possible. We thought it was impossible for the people's stiff-neckedness to be healed, and then we discover that it can be healed.
Question. So, what are the four verses doing here of the tablets? The tablets come between the place on the rock and God's mercy. So the tablets are doing something there. Avram.
Yeah, I have some few ideas about the stiff neck in relation to what Daniel said. I think it have two positive dimensions. If it's stiff-neckedness to God, as in 33 verse 3, then it's a good thing. But this stiff-neckedness, I think the second part of verse 3 gives us the idea. It said, go up to the land flowing with milk and honey, but I will not go with you because you are stiff-necked people, and I might destroy you on the way. I'm looking at they losing the relationship because of their fixed necks, not on God, and because of their lack of flexibility to God's direction. And they might not have that relationship, which may cause their distraction. So that is some ideas in relation to Daniel's point that I have.
Sorry, I missed that. Can you say that again?
In relation to the stiff-neckedness in 33 verse 3, I'm looking at the concept of God not going with them anymore. Why? Their neck, like we have explained, is tipped towards a direction which is not in tune with God. So as if God should go with them on the way, they may fail in the relationship, which may cause their distraction. So in a way, this stiff-neckedness might be good for them, but God is not going with them to further save them and help them achieve the purpose God have for them, maybe.
In other words, they can only go, if you're stiff-necked, you can only go in one direction. And
Yeah.
that's, you can't turn aside.
Yeah.
Sonia raised her hand.
Yes, I had another point for chapter 33, I think, not 34. To what you said, Axel, when if verse 21 is the turning point, why God is suddenly is among the people again, maybe we have the reason for it in verse 19 when he says, I will be gracious to whom I will be gracious, and will show mercy on whom I wish show mercy. So maybe that's the reason that the conversation Moses had with God changed his mind, and he gives the reason in verse 19, and there's the turning point in verse 21, and then in chapter 34 he starts to be among the people again.
So just let me understand. So you say that the turning point was where God shows his mercy.
Yes, that's how I understood what Axel said, that the space God makes for Moses is like the turning point from I won't be among you because you're stiff-necked people to there's a room and he's among them, and the reason why he does it is because he decides to be gracious upon his people. And he can do that because he had this conversation with Moses.
How does the conversation with Moses change his mind or change his relationship in terms of mercy?
Because Moses, even though the people are stiff-necked, he's the only one who speaks to God like a friend. He's the one that reminds God to the relationship he has with the people. There's still one person he's close to from the people.
So Moses becomes kind of the representative, but also kind of the stand-in for Israel.
Yeah.
Interesting.
You know, just 1 second, in verse 3, God speaks to Moses and he tells him, I will not go among you, so Moses is included with the people. So what Sonia said makes a lot of sense. Afterwards, he separates himself in verse 7, but in verse 3, he's included. Okay, Axel?
We have two raised hands. The first hand is by Chezi, and the second hand is by Jonathan.
Chezi.
הרב שבתאי, אני אומר את זה בעברית כי זה קצת מורכב לי. בסדר?
Chezi says that he'll speak Hebrew because it's complicated. Daniel, you take over. Your English is better than mine.
Okay, I'll translate.
אני חושב שדבר ראשון צריך לזכור שבפרק הקודם נשברו הלוחות. היה חטא העגל ונשברו הלוחות.
The first thing you have to remember is that in the previous chapter, the tablets were broken.
וזה הרקע לשיח שיש לנו עכשיו, שהשם אומר, אני לא איתכם.
And that's the breaking of the tablets is the background, the necessary background to what's going on now, to the whole conversation, when God says, I'm not with you.
הפתרון שהשם מציע זה שהוא ישלח מלאך. אני לא אהיה איתכם ואני אשלח מלאך.
And God's solution is that he's not going to go with them, but he's going to send an angel.
עכשיו, כשאתה, דניאל, שאלת מה ההבדל בין מה קרה בין פרק ל"ג לפרק ל"ד, אני חושב שבעצם משה מציע פה אלטרנטיבה.
So the difference between chapter 33 and chapter 34 is that that Moshe now presents an alternative.
עכשיו, האלטרנטיבה שזה לא יהיה מלאך, אלא זה יהיה, משה עצמו יהיה המתווך. הוא אוחז בדרך שהשם אומר, השם אומר, אני אתבדל מכם. אז גם משה עצמו נבדל, מוציא את עצמו מהמחנה, לוקח את האוהל שלו אל מחוץ למחנה, והקדוש ברוך הוא עכשיו מתחיל למצוא ערוץ חדש ישירות אליו, הענן יורד אל משה בפרק ל"ג פסוק ט'.
So the alternative is that instead of an angel, Moshe himself becomes the intermediary between God and Moshe, between God and the people, by taking the tent outside the camp and setting it up outside the camp where God can speak to him.
ולכן משה מבקש את הקישור הישיר אליו, הודיעני נא את דרכיך, והשם עונה לו ב-13 מידות של רחמים, ומשה, אני חושב, הוא הצליח במהלך, הוא אמר, הקדוש ברוך הוא, אתה לא רוצה להיות איתנו, אתה מתרחק, בסדר, אני מתרחק איתך, ודווקא בהתרחקות הזאת, שאומר, אני עכשיו הערוץ, הוא הצליח להחזיר את הקדוש ברוך הוא חזרה, לזה שהוא כן מוכן ללכת איתנו ולבוא אותנו. זה הפתרון של משה, והשינוי לפרק למד.
So Chazi says that Moshe's solution succeeds, that he succeeds in separating himself from the people, becoming the new channel, the new intermediary between God and the people, by separating himself, and then God reveals himself to Moshe, and that by Moshe, becoming the intercessor, he manages to bring God back into the people's midst.
Thank you very much.
Fascinating. Yonatan?
Yes, thanks, Chazi. It was interesting. I want to suggest what is the cure in chapter 34 for the specificness of Israel. If you'll see in chapter 34, God gives again 2 tablets, but this time the tablets, what is written on the tablets is the things that was written on the first tablets, and those tablets were called Luchot HaEdut.
Where do you see it?
Where do you see that it's Luchot HaEdut? In chapter 32.
These were the first tablets.
Yes, and those are Luchot HaEdut. How do you translate the tablets of Edut? Opening for the English.
Testimony.
Yeah, the tablets of testimony.
Now, the tablets are not testimony, but now, if you'll see in chapter 34, he says, he goes up, Moses goes to the mountain, and then in verse 10, there's a covenant between God and the people. And after the things he said, all the mitzvot, all the deeds he commands, he says in verse 28, now he writes on the tablets the 10 things of the covenant. And the first time that those things are called things of the covenant is the verses in this chapter. I suggest that on the second set of the tablets, it's not only the edut, but also the brit. Now it's not only testimony, but there's a covenant. And there's more things written on the second set of the tablets, the 10 things that are in this chapter. And now the people were stiffness. And now when they get in a covenant with God, they can cure the stiffness and become in a covenant with God, and they can go in a better way or something.
How is the covenant a cure for the stiff-neckedness?
Because the covenant is hadadi between God and the people.
Is mutual.
Yes, the people not only see something, not only a dut, not only a testimony, but now they are active. They have to do something for that.
They're not only looking in one direction, as Avraham suggested, but they are actively participating in some way.
Yes.
You know, when I read it, I think about my computer. My computer or software tends to be stiff-necked. It doesn't do what I want. It has its own rules, and many times it defies me. So, but the question is whether I really want it flexible and not to have stiff rules. And the answer is no. The only reason that it's usable because it has rules. So maybe the stiff-neck is a good thing if you can, something which is close to what Axel said, that from time to time you can change the look. It's good that you are looking in one direction. That's very good. But from time to time, this look can move. You can program the computer that it will move the direction that it's going. So maybe the stiff-neckedness is good only if it's unmutable. So stay stiff-necked. So Moses tells God, okay, we are stiff-necked, but here, and where is it? Here. Here, in verse 9, we are stiff-necked, so all you have to do is just to forgive us and give us a place where we can, from time to time, on special occasions, change our look. Because you want us to be stiff-necked, only with the ability to change according to your will. Occasionally change.
So, I mean, this is some kind of flexible or changeable stiff-neckedness.
Yes, right.
So the interesting thing is that if you look at in this verse to God himself, he is not stiff-necked. He changed his mind.
Who?
God.
Right.
And that's an interesting thing that I mean, he had a lot of reason to stay stiff-necked because the people has lost him, and but he changed his mind because Moses persuaded him to stay in a way flexible and true in one sense, in one way.
What you say is something beautiful, because this is what I had in the back of my mind, that the tablets are made of stone because they're also stiff. They're not made from something malleable. They're made on stone.
When you drop them, they break.
Well, yes. And then in chapter 34, the new tablets are also made of stone. The only thing is there was a phase of change. There was the stone before and the stone after, and there is a change.
Yeah.
So we still have tablets of stone and we still have stiff neck, but we have a change.
Abraham raised his hand. Abraham?
Yeah, I just want to have some clarification from Reb Shabtai about this idea of God changing his mind and God's back. The tablets are stiff, the stones are stiff, but this idea of God changing his mind, how can we clear it well? Maybe Daniel can help.
It raises. I mean, this whole section raises profound theological questions.
But maybe you just do it from the text and not theology.
Yeah, well, that's I was about to say. It raises theological questions, but it's better to stay with the text in the terms that the text is using. There's no sense here of God's mindset in the sense that the people are described. There's no sense here of God having a particular status. It's all about how we relate to God and the effect that God has on other beings. If God is with us, God will destroy us. If anybody sees God, he cannot exist. Those are the things that seem to change. At first God says, if I'm with you, I will destroy you. If anybody sees me, they will die. And it's the relationship. It's not so much God changing as the nature of the relationship between man and God that changes. Now there can exist, as Axel said, some space, I guess we could call it, in fact, a safe space in the rock where man can see God. So, one could think of it as God changing his mind, but that's not really in the text. What's in the text is how the God's effect on humans changes throughout these chapters.
Okay.
Maybe you should notice verse 11, that God speaks to Moshe face to face.
In chapter 33.
Yes,
Chapter 33.
you have it on the screen, verse 11. What do you think? What does it mean that God speaks to Moses face to face? I'm talking from human experience, just from the text. Theologically, it's something which has a very big theological burden. But let's just see the text. What does it mean face to face?
As man speaks to a friend.
Yes. What does it mean? We speak to each other now face to face, and some people are hiding behind they closed the video. So what?
Well, I think God's video was also closed because God says you can't see me. God is speaking face to face, but I think if unless we want to say there's a contradiction in the text, I think that Moshe is not seeing him, just as some people's video is not on.
But the interesting thing is the text says face to face and not ear to ear or something like that. I mean, that's quite interesting. On the one hand, it says you can see me, but on the other hand, there is a relationship between God and Moses face to face.
Tell me something, Axel. Angesicht in German is face or look?
Angesicht is face.
Is face.
Face, yeah.
I see.
It's an old word for face.
I see. Oh, I thought it means the look on the face. The expression. I thought it means the facial expression.
No.
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 Okay.
Rami raised his hand.
Sure.
I'm trying to find out an answer for your point concerning Moses speaks to God face to face. It's a bit meditative point of view that jumped to my mind. Daniel, at the beginning of our webinar, had referred to 3 demands Moses had asked God for, like verse 13, referring that Moses asked him to show him his way. And then in verse 14, God replies, my presence will go with you. Second demand in verse 15 afterwards, asking him, do not bring us up from here like without your presence. And then God replies in 17, I will do also this thing for you. Maybe, and also the third order, of course, show me your glory. And then God replies to him in verse 19, I will make all my goodness pass by you. I think, let me say, when verse 11 refers to this face-to-face talk, it's like as if Moses' eyes had been opened spiritually, like he is now in the presence of God. And although God had referred how his people stiff-necked, however, meeting him face-to-face make this mercifulness like covered or veiled like Moses. And then he started to ask, show me your glory, do not leave us, show me your way. And then God, as the Father, replies, like, I will show you a part of my glory and whatsoever. So, I mean, for me, answering your point is seeing him face to face means Moses really realized his presence and he's now speaking to his God and friend.
Interesting. I just from my experience, I think face to face in a very human way is that you know what someone means and not only when someone says. And I want to continue with what Rami suggested, that when someone talks and says words, it's information. So you can be stiff-necked and follow the law. All the judges that I know are very stiff-necked. You know, they have the letter of law and they judge by the letter of law. But face-to-face means you see the expression. So the expression is something totally, it's a different level than the words. You can speak and you can hear words, and you can speak and see the expression. And maybe whenever the face are mentioned, it means that the people will understand not only the words, but also the expression, the facial expression, the nuances of what really God wants. Yes.
Yeah. Nowadays, when we communicate by text, by email or by text message, We use emojis because the text doesn't convey enough. You have to convey the facial expression, which is conveyed by the emoji. So when you speak to a friend, you understand each other without the emojis because you can imagine them saying it and hear their tone of voice.
Right. Chezi wanted to suggest that face-to-face is different than face-to-neck. When someone turns his neck to his back of his head towards you, which means you don't want to listen. But face-to-face is showing the readiness to listen. It says in the prophets several times that they turned their back of the heads to me and did not listen to me. ויפנו אליי עורף ולא פנים, Jeremiah says. They showed me the back of their heads and not the face. Maybe. This was Chezi's.
Elisa says it's like the kruvim, like the cherubs on top of the ark that face each other, or sometimes, according to the midrashic tradition, don't face each other.
These are the wooden kruvim. The cherubim, they don't face each other, are not the golden kruvim on the kaporet, but the wooden kruvim that King Solomon made. The big ones. Yes.
Any other thoughts on Rav Shabtai's on Rav Shabtai's point about speaking to each other as speaking to a friend?
So again, I think that friend can read and interpret correctly the face, because he knows the language of the face.
But yes, I think that general approach, the notion of Moshe developing this relationship or establishing this kind of relationship with God of speaking face to face, is maybe the beginning of opening up the or working towards the solution in a way that a few different people have suggested. Moshe as a stand-in for Israel, Moshe possibly as the replacement for the angel that God was going to send, Moshe as establishing the possibility of God having a direct relationship with a human being without it being an all-consuming or destructive experience for the human being.
Daniel, we have to wind up. We have to close the session. And it's always closing the session when we have more to say. Axel, yes, who?
We have just one more raised hand by Abraham, and maybe this should be the closing statement.
Yes. Avraham?
Yeah, briefly, I just want to add to what Daniel said, that this face-to-face dimension also can, like Rav, have shared this flexibility opposite to the stiff-neckedness of those who could not speak to God face-to-face.
Meaning, if you're stiff-necked, you can't turn to the other person.
Yeah. And if you can't face-to-face, you have this flexibility like a friend.
Very good.
Very nice.
Very nice. Okay, so Daniel, you want to wrap up the?
No, I kind of said what I had to say. I just wanted to thank everybody. This is a section that has puzzled me for a long time. I have a lot of new thoughts I want to turn over and think about more. And thank you all. I don't know whether we want to continue from here going forward or whether next time we want to try something new, but I guess we'll decide that.
We can, by the next, who wants to lead us next time? Anyone volunteers? I can choose a volunteer. Gerald, how about you? You want to lead us next time with the text of your choice?
When is the next time you're scheduling?
Rolly will write you, and whenever he tries to optimize the time when it's good for everyone. We didn't set up.
I can sure try. I'm going to be doing some traveling, but we could work something out.
Wonderful. So Gerald will be the next person, and next week we'll see most of you in Bar Ilan. I'm really looking forward to that, and we'll try to convince Alexander to broadcast also in Zoom, so people that don't come to Bar Ilan, at least for one session, could join us. We
have an example for a really stiff-necked person concerning
That's why I asked you that whether you are a practicing pastors. You know, many pastors think that people, they know some stiff-necked persons in their community.
Yes,
But
of
I don't know what about a stiff-necked pastor. So anyway, we'll promise him that we will not record him. Okay, we'll see. So we'll let you know if we'll have some Zoom. It will be possible to have a few sessions on Zoom. We'll let you know. But our next pure Zoom session will be led by Gerald.
Great.
So
Thank you. I enjoyed participating and look forward to the next. I'll be happy to do that.